Okay, Devils, how we doing today? Here we are on the 25th of September, and as I mentioned in my note, well, members, you got a 2-hour webinar with Grandmaster Quan last night, so that's really talking about the broader markets, but Bitcoin particularly. So, thus, I wanted to leave Bitcoin off of the poll today. Well, of course, I'll look at it on Friday, and we'll have some more data to work with by then. But because of that, I wanted Bitcoin off the poll. So I suppose not surprising that you guys chose Litecoin and Ethereum here. So what I thought we'd do here is, so here's Ethereum. This is a 3-hour on Bitstamp. It's exactly as we left it last time, which I think was actually a week ago. So when we were last here, and we had this, so sorry, goddamn allergies. When we were last here, we were in the midst of this 3. Right? We didn't yet have the 4-5 there, right? Which ultimately did set up. So the idea was if we got the impulse here, which it turns out we did, if we got the impulse as we came down, we were looking for the 2 to go into the 3, 4, and 5, right? So obviously that's not what we got. Now let's unpack this a little bit. I think this is worth leaving on here because, as I've told you guys before, with a breakout, if we're going to come down and retest here, right here at the golden zone, right? So rather than just delete it, one thought is we'll just hide it here. So we'll take that off, but it's still there, so we can bring it back, right? So just don't forget it's there. So, looking here, of course, counts break down all the time, right? So this is... Yes, is it disappointing? Sure, but this was always the weakest part of this count, right? Because this was a little bit of a stretch to get that diagonal in here. So if it was going to break down, this didn't surprise me terribly. I was always a little ill at ease with this. We just didn't have the right structure there. I mean, it was, yeah, you could get 5 out of that, but I think we've got to reconsider this now. So I'm going to take that off here as we unpack this and put a new count on it. Now here, right, so this here, let me zoom in here. So yeah, this was also a little iffy here, but we could finish the 1 here. So we had the leading diagonal into the 1, 2 here. Good numbers here. It's shallow for the 4, and hard to dig 5 out of that 5th. But there's enough there here to where from here to here. As we're coming down here, you had lots of things to suggest. Okay, now I should. Oh shit, sorry guys. I should note here I'm in log scale. Not dramatic when we zoom in here, but on the bigger picture here, because of the range here, I think log is certainly you would want to look at it, right? Of course, I always like to look at both. But as it's coming down here, right? So as Bitcoin was free falling, right? So to be sitting here with a limit order. I like to think you guys weren't doing that, right? So as this was just coming, there was no pause here. There was no point where we got any sort of signs of a reaction here. So nothing to say, oh, okay, right? As I often will suggest, if you can, right? If you see the evidence of it, if you can get a little pop, right? That's just stronger than just sitting here with a limit order waiting to get obliterated. Now, if you took it at the 618, you were out pretty quickly with minimal damage. If you took it at the 50, well, as I will often suggest, I'd like to think you didn't go all in at the 50. All right, so even there, if you started with a partial at the 50, looking to load at the 6 at the golden zone, stop under the 65, damage shouldn't have been too severe, right? I mean that you were out quickly, that's for sure, right? I mean in minutes, right? It just went straight down. So again, that's a little bit about money management, entry. But I can see how that would have been tempting. But of course, I mean, Bitcoin free falling, right? I don't know that I'd been sitting there with a limit order. It's hindsight, right? So if you did, right, hopefully the stop was under the 65, the damage wasn't severe, and you didn't put, the kids' tuition money into that. So we got to unpack this now and say, okay, well, obviously, right, this wasn't the 2. Let me pull back out just for a second here. The other thing to note here, this was another thing that was worth noting that we had acknowledged here, is that we had this structure here. So we had all of this structure here, which we came to the golden zone to get a motive off of that. If you did take that trade, you don't. That's not one to be beating yourself up over. I mean, all right. So you took a stop, right? Welcome to trading, right? That should not. The mistake would be if you entered and you didn't put a stop on it, right? So now you're underwater, or again, depending on your size, is how severe that is. You've broken the low, so any idea that we had a 1-2 here is now gone. All right, so I guess it's not the right time for an analysis into how you might enter that, right? So, I mean, as I've just gone through here, I'd like to think stops were in place. If not on the other 65, at least on this one. But now if we go all the way down here and we just kind of look at it and go, all right, well, have we blown up this count entirely? Well, right, of course not, right? So we don't lose the internal retracement until we take out that low. So clearly this is not the 2, but we're not completely blown up here in the sense that the idea that this is a 1 and we're correcting that through a 2, we're not blown up there yet. So, but the count has definitely changed. So as we look here, I think this has to be because of the size of the retracement here. I mean, even here in log scale, it is interesting. We go right to the structure before we pause. So you got to look here and start grabbing pivots and go, okay, well, from that one, on it, right? So a little shy of the 50. That could have been it. Here we're only making the 38. Here we break. We go past the 68. That's too secondary for me. So this would be one that I'd be watching. But really, here's the big one. If we're going to start to come back up, start looking here. So what do we have here? Well, I think this AB here seems. I mean, of course, it's shallow for that B relative to the A. The double bottom here, again, it's a little shaky, right? It's not ideal, but the 3 here and the double top into that, I think there's no reason to change that. So from this pivot here, what are the possibilities? Well, we go right to the 786. So it would be more probable to be a 2 or a B. Well. If we're looking to finish with a C, and given how far we've gone here, I think we've got to consider 2 scenarios here. If this is the B and we're looking for 5, it's hard not to be thinking 1, 2, right? And 3, 4, and 5 still yet to come. Now let's get that so you can see it. All right, now let me pull some of this off here because we're getting a little crowded in there. Okay, so if that's, I think this now has to play more, right? It was always a little shaky as a diagonal. I think we have to go ABC here into a 1. Bear with me here. Let's get this down and let's get this up. Okay, so I think we've got to go 1, 2, more probably. So we got to go ABC into the 2 here. That seems to fit better, but that's certainly not great news for bulls if we're going down this low. So let's wick it off and. Oh, pardon me, that's not what I want. I want this. Okay. So these are broken now, so we can pull these off. To and through. So as we come back now we're looking for pivots like this, right? Or this. We're looking for that structure coming back up here that might play a role here. So if this is 1, 2, all right, well, we're trying to finish the C wave. All right, so we've got 100 exactly, right? If that's correctly identified as the 1 from the 2, so too soon to put it'll be a little soon for me. Right, the length of time here is just not enough here. So if this is the ABC in here, and the subdivision here is a little iffy. So I'd be more inclined to be thinking something along these lines if we're going to get an A, B, and a C. So to bring this down a little lower, right? So just trying to put together a roadmap here. Could we still hang on to the idea that this is an internal retracement, which until we break this low, it maintains at least the potential for that. So put a channel on it, seems to make sense. So a little bit more down for the ABC of the 3. Well, we don't know, right? So this could be the A wave here. So we could certainly have something like this going in, right, to come down here, right? If this is going to stay, so if this is an ABC and we got to go ABC here right now, my first thought is that we're going to finish with a diagonal. So this would we'd perhaps an ending diagonal down here right now. How far that goes, we got to get this pivot, and we got to see what the structure looks like. But to me, this looks like a candidate for an A. Be looking for a retrace if we get any kind of pop in Bitcoin, right? So everything's going to follow Bitcoin here. So we got something like that into the 3, right? So we'd have, let's see if we can put it together here. A, B, right? Just using the structure. C, right? Then in a diagonal, we'd be looking for the 50, coming back, right? Again, I don't have this. I'm just using those wave tendencies. So if we were in a, God damn it, if we were going to come back to the 50, right? That's where we're looking for the, in a diagonal, we'd be looking for that last push. Put us down for the 5 of the C. Let's take that C up. Of the 2. So you'd end up, right, if it's going to, now again, it's a bit early to be calling this a diagonal, but I'm just my first instinct is to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. Maintains the 2, very deep. So sorry. Excuse me. Okay, so we come back here. All right, so can we go that low? Well, let's take a look at it. Right? So if we're from the low here, right, so we'd be, here's our 786. We could be pushing past that. We can, let's put the 887 on there. Do I have it in here? Yeah, I do. Okay, so we got the 887 down here. So we've got to, this is going to be deep. If we're going to hold, we've got some targets down here. Now I'm using the channel here. We don't know that we're going to stay with that. And if this is going to finish as a diagonal, we might want to be, again, it's a bit early to be calling the diagonal, and maybe we get an ending diagonal. We'd be looking for more contraction. But right now, I think no reason to move away from the channel until we see more. We get more reveal from the market as to what is actually happening here. Because we certainly could have an impulse, right? The using the channel would be more conducive to an impulse. But I'm thinking that's an ABC here. We got to go ABC here. So we got to wait and see what we get in the 3 here. So this, yeah, I don't know that we need it. So right now it's just kind of wait and see. So if that's gonna, let's go down to the hourly here. I don't think there's a trade really. Here, let me get some of this off of here. Okay, so we got the 100 to the tick there. That's not insignificant. If we're going to come back, something like that. So looking if the low is in, right, which we don't know, but if we're going to get something like that, then we head down. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So certainly there's nothing here to suggest buying it. 0, right? So not a time to be a buyer here, and something radically changes with Bitcoin. So right now the next trade would be a short. Looking for the retrace somewhere in this zone here. Right? We'd be looking for something there, anticipating that all we have is the B and the 1-2. The B and the 1-2 of the C, so that despite the depth of it here, right? So that's why we only get to the 100 because of how deep we go here. So despite that, if this comes into a 3, I absolutely think you've got the opportunity to be a seller here. Right? We're not too far into this, but if you got that. For those of you comfortable shorting in crypto, in Ethereum here, I don't know that I'd lever it up heavily, but that certainly is setting up as your next trade, given the break here. So if that's offered up here, I would certainly be considering a short there. Certainly nothing here says buy it. There's count, time, structure, geometry. Nothing says be a buyer. 0. Go back out to that 3. So you got a little bit of a hurry up and wait here. We've got to get some more definition of whatever the correction takes. And again, we don't know that this low is in, but we need a little more structure here to start to feel good about, is that really something you want to sell? I don't see anything that would allow for this to be done here. Let me say it this way. If you're analyzing with your Elliott hat on, it would be very hard to come up with a count that would have you finishing here. The wild card would be if we did get something bigger here along these lines. Yeah, let's see. Let me take this off. So see, here's the, possibly it's an alternate. If this is ultimately going to stay as a zigzag, as we had counted it previously, despite the shaky diagonal in here, if this were going to stay as a zigzag, and we were going to call this a W, well, we need a deeper X before we get the ABC here. So the wild card would be that we had something along these lines, that we have an expanded B here. We were to go up for something like that and then come down again into an ABC. But I think that's less likely. But it occurs to me, right, in terms of thinking of what are the other possible scenarios here, because at first glance, prior to this break, your thinking was, oh, I got a nice zigzag here, so there's my W. I'm not far enough for an X. I'm going down for a Y, then I'd finish with an ABC. But I think that's it's a possibility here, but there's really nothing here to suggest that until we got something that was, we need to break this pivot, right, to even bring that into contention, and then you'd be finishing with an ABC. But that seems, kind of a bit early to forecast that. Right now, we've got just a free fall, right, as everything fell yesterday, into the retrace. The next thing would clearly be, right, to be a short in here, just staying in line with the channel. Now, of course, I'd put a stop on it, so I wouldn't give that beyond, well, I wouldn't give it beyond the 786, or pardon me, beyond the 65 here. If you were, again, depending on your risk tolerance here and the size you were trading, maximum would be the 786, right? So if you just think algo, if we're just coming back down here, that would put you right at the risk reward is not quite good enough there. So if you were, let's just split the difference. We shorted here. If you put it on the 65 and you're just coming down here, well, at least you got 5 to 1. You get the wave 3 here, right? Now you've got, now that starts now you got almost 8 to 1. If you bring the stop up to the 786, well, you're going to need that lower target. You're going to need to get this third to kick, which you don't know that you're going to get that. But if we were to get down here, well, now you got 4 to 1. But if you only get this, right, now you're less than 3 to 1. So that, for me, that's not good enough. I would put the stop at the 65, right? So now I can at least get, again, almost 6 to 1. All right, so that would not be insignificant if we do that, right? If we come here and then algo target in the golden zone, I'd be trailing with a stop there, right? Anticipating that you're going to get a reaction there. Now that could just keep going, of course. But that's what I see here. So again, the market is, I think, seeking direction here. So right now, look, we've just got a series of lower highs, lower lows. As we get lower lows here, we're also a series of lower highs. Now this, right, so we got a little kick here, but working back, lower high, lower high, lower high, right? So until that changes, this would be just another lower high, implying that the trade is down. Now, if we were to finish here, something like this, well, then maybe you start to put together the idea, where's my one here, of an ending diagonal. You'd be looking for something like that. All right, so you'd anticipate that it was contracting as it went down. Trying to finish here, this would be bull's optimism here, that you got something along these lines. You maintain here, you stay above the 786, you get the 2, right? So we don't know. I'm going to take the WXY out here. Still thinking that it's A, B, and we're in the 1, 2. So looking for that diagonal structure here to start contracting if we're going to get an ending diagonal. That's what I'd be looking for. Still hanging on to the idea that we could have a 1, 2 going in. But getting ahead of ourselves here. So right now, it's just it's swing to swing, right? Counts are changing, breaking down until we get more clarity. I wouldn't do anything new here until we got up into this, right? But I sure wouldn't be a buyer right here. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'll be back with Litecoin in just a bit. All right, guys.